2020, and this is 10 on Tuesdays. For today's episode, I'm joined by special guest Chris Snyder of the Wisconsin Auto and Truck Dealers Association. We're going to be talking about the auto and truck manufacturing and sales industry, what impacts COVID has had, and what the future looks like. I'm Holly Hoffman, founding partner and CEO of the Sales and Income Tax Advisory Network. Prior to creating my company, I worked for the Wisconsin Department of Revenue as an auditor, speaker, and sales tax specialist. My passion is to help provide sales tax education and support to tax professionals, businesses, and associations with the goal of building a network of empowered taxpayers. For more information, visit salesandincometax.com. Thank you for joining my web chats, 10 on Tuesdays, every Tuesday from 10 to 10:30 a.m. You can check out previous episodes on my 10 on Tuesdays channel. To find my channel, go to salesandincometax.com, look for the 10 on Tuesdays logo, click the logo to register, or click watch previous episodes to access the 10 on Tuesdays channel. So now, let me formally introduce my guest today, Chris Snyder. Chris is the Executive Vice President and General Counsel for the Wisconsin Auto and Truck Dealers Association. So thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Where did you get that wonderful picture? All right.
I scoured the files looking for dirt. Did I say dirt information on you? No, I'm just kidding. It's a great picture. I don't know what you're.
Okay.
So, you do a lot, and the Auto and Truck Dealers Association really does a lot for dealers. So I did put on my slide, for those that are looking at the slide. If you don't have it right now, you can always check out the channel later on to look at it. But I listed maybe half of what your association does for dealers. And so I was wondering if you could just explain some of the important things that you do and your role and your association's role for dealers in Wisconsin.
Sure. Well, the Wisconsin Auto and Mobile and Truck Dealers Association has been around for uh, a long time, about 85, 86 years. We were actually formed to lobby against the annual property tax that was assessed against dealers' inventories back in the late 1930s. And from there, we just they kept going, and we were mainly a lobbying organization for a long time. But we've gradually morphed into providing services that we think that that our members need. We have about 800 members statewide. There are about 545 franchised rooftops and another 250 or so independent dealers. We represent motorcycle dealers and RV dealers. So anything that you can put a license plate on and drive down the highway, we represent. Um, we Our industry is very heavily regulated, so we help provide education for the dealers. I mean, that's mainly compliance education for stuff, the title and registration process, vehicle sales, the laws of leasing and sales and use tax, employment law stuff, anything that the dealer may need just to comply with the various regulations that are out there. Um, Yep, and we do listen to dealer concerns. We are proactive in some instances for changes to the law, or at least setting a business environment that is beneficial to our members and to consumers.
Yeah, and I know since I focus on sales tax, our relationship does go back to DOR. And one of the great things, just my experience, I know you guys do way beyond sales tax, but one of the items on here is develops and provides legally correct forms for dealer use. And WATDA did go to great extents to create a spreadsheet and a worksheet to correctly calculate sales tax in Wisconsin, which is a huge help and was not easy to do. So hats off to you guys for doing that for everyone.
The leasing project, you mean?
Yep. Mhm.
The sales tax on leases.
Yeah. It gets complicated and wasn't easy to
Yes,
do.
it does.
So, moving on, I wanted to talk today mainly about the impact that COVID has had on your industry and kind of hear where things are at, um, from manufacturing to sales and consumerism, just in light of everything that's been going on with the
Sure.
economy. So, let's just start with manufacturing and work our way out to sales. But starting with manufacturing, I'm just curious how the pandemic has affected the supply chain for vehicle manufacturers and then vehicle manufacturing itself with the shutdowns and slowdowns. So, can you talk to me a little bit about what impact that's had?
Yeah. Well, and we've kind of gotten a double whammy because when the pandemic hit, um, the president was working to get USMCA, the trade agreement, was completed. It just hadn't been ratified yet, and so that was going to change some of the manufacturing structure and where vehicles are being manufactured and where those parts are being manufactured, and so things were in a little bit of a flux back in at the end of February, but everything was still moving and vehicles were still being manufactured. Once the pandemic hit, and it hit in China first, that's we have a lot of aftermarket parts coming from there, and a lot of the support items and stuff, even for vehicles that were built in Mexico or in the United States. We're still getting supplies from China, and when that got shut off, that really slowed down production. But then once the pandemic kicked in by mid-March, a lot of production was halted, because you know, uh, if you've ever been in a factory, I mean, you're in tight quarters. It's hard to socially distance. I don't think anyone was wearing masks or anything like that. Uh, so it just made problems worse. And then as people started to, we started with shutdowns and people not working, and then uh, the traffic just came to a complete stop, and that had an effect on sales. But people still needed to get their cars fixed, and part of the problem was that we had some dealers were running out of parts to fix cars.
Yeah.
Um, that created an issue there. Uh, for the most part, the parts supply chain has picked up, and the sales have picked up. I'm looking at a chart. Sales dropped as low as 745,000 new vehicles were sold in April, and that is substantially lower. It's just taken July. There was 1,260,000, almost 261,000 vehicles sold. Those are new vehicles sold nationwide. Um, so I mean that's almost half. Yeah, in April.
Yeah.
But that creates another problem, though, in that Mexico was really hit hard, and their factories have been shut down for a while, and it's had an effect on the vehicle supply that is available, the new vehicle supply.
Do you see us bringing or manufacturers bringing back everything into the U.S. Manufacturing in light of this, or are we all, do you think, not saying this is your expertise, but do you think we're going to continue operating in a global system and not be independent of everyone else?
We're not going to be completely independent, but more of it is coming back, and more. You have to find people who are willing to make the investment to build the factories and buy the equipment to make the parts and stuff like that. The current administration, in the White House, has put a lot of pressure on the manufacturers to bring manufacturing back to the United States.
Mhm.
But the part supply chain is still predominantly not done in the United States.
Yeah.
So some of that's going to work its way back, though.
So one of the interesting things that we talked about, we talked the other week about what we were going to talk about today, and you mentioned about electric car production, and I wondered if you could just tell us where that stands right now.
Well, are you talking just because? Well, every manufacturer
Mhm.
is right at the point where they're going to start kicking out a number of models of electric vehicles, plug-in
Mhm.
electric, full electric vehicles. Um, uh, General Motors is even talking about uh, peeling off their electric cars and creating another franchise. Um, Volvo is very aggressive in their plans to have everything converted over by 2025, so that everything that they're producing is going to be electric.
Mm.
Volkswagen has an aggressive electric electric plans. I don't know that COVID has really had an effect on it, other than maybe just slowing down the rollouts of some of products that they think may come out shortly. I see that yesterday this company Nikolai, which makes like semi truck fully electric semi trailers or tractors, and they just got a huge order to make a bunch of dump trucks for some company. But I mean, this is a company that hasn't produced one truck, and they just got. Let's see if I can find it, but they just got an order for like 1,200 trucks, and I don't know how they're going to get there. If you just look at the problems that Tesla has had trying to ramp up those 2,500 electric garbage trucks, is what
Mm.
they just took an order for, and um, Tesla had nothing but production problems last year when they tried to go from these handmade vehicles to mass production vehicles to get their latest model out. And so I don't know how these companies can justify placing an order. I'm sure there must be an out in case it can't be fulfilled. But I think especially in the heavy trucking industry, um, there are motor carriers who who are looking to find ways to reduce costs
Right.
and environmentally friendly. So if they can do that with electric trucks, uh, uh, they're willing to at least make that investment.
Right.
I know UPS and FedEx have they've placed large orders with Tesla because Tesla was rolled out plans to build a truck, but that's still at least 2 years away.
Wow. Things are changing though. You see more of the electric charging stations around. A lot of employers are installing them to prepare. So I see it changing over more so than it had in previous years. So we talked a little
Yeah.
bit about production and the supply chain. How have dealerships been surviving? If the supply is lower, they have their service departments and then they have their sales departments. How is that affecting them and how are they getting through?
Well, we were fortunate enough to be declared an essential business uh, by the state when they ordered their shutdown orders. So the dealerships were at least had the option to be open. We had a few um, that decided to close for a few weeks just so that they could wrap their head around what they were going to have to do to stay safe. Um, but the service departments stayed busy, even when the sales departments weren't. When people were a little leery and they weren't buying. Um, but we did have some dealers who had some really good months there in April and May, and it was a lot of it was spurred by manufacturer captives that were offering some really good interest rates. 0% interest rate for 84 months. The General Motors and Ford were offering. Uh, so it kept some sales activity going.
Hmm.
The industry itself in February was bracing itself for a record number of lease turn-ins uh, coming up this year, and so everybody was bracing themselves for a glut in used cars, and that did not happen. What happened was a lot of people kept their leased vehicles. They either extended their leases because manufacturers were offering that, or they just decided to buy out their lease while they while the deal was still good. So right now, with the lack of production of new vehicles and the lack of people uh, turning over their leases, we are starting to see um, shortage in used vehicles. So used vehicle prices have started to go up, both at the wholesale level and at the retail.
Yeah, and this is where you got me in trouble with my husband. So he hears used vehicles prices are going up and that you were talking about that truck sales are pretty good right now because of gas prices being low. Not good in relative terms, but not doing bad because of gas prices. So I guess our
Well,
agreement is he can look and see if he can find something, but inventory's low, right?
correct. If you're a dealer and you have some trucks, yeah, you're not going to have a problem selling them. We're getting into September, October are big truck sales months,
Hmm.
and so um, uh, it's it'll be interesting to see how they try to meet the demand um, once the
Yeah.
harvest comes through.
Yeah. So one other question, we didn't discuss this, but I want to ask this because I saw this over the weekend. The president of the Federal Reserve is calling for a complete nationwide 6-week shutdown and suggests this will be the final shutdown and it'll put an end to the spread of the pandemic in the US. But I'm just wondering, so you specifically in the auto and truck industry, what effect do you think that would have in light of all the other challenges currently existing if we had a complete 6-week shutdown nationwide?
Um, well, when they say complete shutdown, I guess I wonder what extent they're really talking about. We still have to get food to grocery stores, and people have to buy food.
Right.
I don't,
I'm
and
thinking of like what we had this spring, where
yeah,
everyone pretty much joined together, but there was essential
I
businesses allowed.
well, part of um, a 6 week shutdown, so that would be a month and 2 weeks, and uh, that would, I mean, for the most part, during the first shutdown in the spring, um, the dealers were able to keep their employees. They utilized the PPP loans, and like I said, their service departments still maintain some solid business, um, and they found things for people to do and to keep them working. Um, Having worked their way through that, I would think a 6 week shutdown, provided that they were still an essential business, we could weather through it. But I mean, they would be tight. It would be, you know, but they've already had some practice doing it, and
Hmm.
but you know, I would suspect that at some point there, you would have to lay some people off, just because you just wouldn't have the cash flow to pay everybody.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's any good solutions that we're looking to, and falls a real question mark of what's going to happen for everyone. And I just keep thinking this is just building the intensity for people to want to get out and experience things in person and get back to work and purchase. And so I'm hoping for a quick recovery when things get back to whatever normal is.
Yeah, well, I hear you there.
So that about wraps it up today. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today. So, Chris, keep up the good
Sure.
work you do on behalf of dealers. I mean, it really benefits all of us. And I hope you come back again to talk about the amazing comeback in production of vehicles and sales.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Keep up the
Thank you.
good work. All right.
Thanks. Next week, I hope
Okay.
you tune in for the top 10 in sales tax, my top 10 most important things you should know about sales and use tax. And be sure to mark your calendars for August 25th, because my special guest is attorney Tim Shalley of the Michael Best Law Firm. Tim is one of, if not the top sales and use tax attorneys in Wisconsin. I don't know how we will keep the show to a half an hour with two tax nerds like ourselves, but trust me, you'll find it interesting. So mark your calendar for August 25th. And to rewatch this episode or to view previous episodes of 10 on Tuesdays, go to salesandincometax.com and check out my 10 on Tuesdays channel. And I will see you all next week. Have a good week.